So, welcome back, gents. You get 15-minute video voice recordings. So, we stopped here on types of mergers and acquisitions, and we had our friend Ben Broadley, who is in 6.1, and he had his backwards vertical integration where he went and bought a wheat farm to control his supply line, but also grow his business and have more revenue streams. He can now sell bread, but he can now sell wheat. He can sell the wheat only to his own bakery and ensure that he has control over quality and the like. And it also means he can sell it at a more expensive price to his competitors in the bakery market, meaning that his bread is more cost effective. We then went forward vertical. He went down the road to his friend Silvio and he bought the supermarket. Now, you could logically think at this point in time, why would he want to go buy a supermarket? Well, if you go to a supermarket and you're going to go buy bread, now all the bread that will be on Silvio's supermarket will be Benny's bread. He can also, being that he owns the supermarket, control the outlets or which suppliers use the shelf space at the supermarket for bread, meaning that Benny is both controlling the quality and quantity of the wheat that he gets and who it goes to, sells it independently in his own bakery, but also forwards it to Silvio's supermarket, therefore controlling the supply chain from beginning to end. He is therefore taking extensive control over the wider market and the ability and where his bread will be taken to. This, gentlemen, is what our friend Coles and Woolies are currently doing. They're buying up the farms, buying the distribution models, and then obviously owning the middle market, being where they're made, and the final market and how they distribute in terms of their shelf space. We then grow a little bit further. Our little document and diagram that I insist that you have in your notes goes to the next point, which is horizontal integration. All right? Horizontal integration is the gnosis of going to a business in a similar, all right, but not like for like, similar industry. So in this case, he goes down the road and buys Paul's Patisserie. So some of you might be sitting there going, what is a patisserie? All right, probably Charlie Youlden. Now, a patisserie is something that sells high-end bakery items, kind of like your croissants and the like. So it's a bit different to just the bread that we're making over here. Now, horizontal integration assures that, again, once again, Benny can increase his business through the notion of merger and acquisition, and he's buying Paul's Patisserie means he's still in the same space, still using his same knowledge on how to make bread and wheat-related products, but he's just extending his market share and how many products he can sell. There's also what is diversification. Now, if those of you in finance-minded or finance-related in shares, diversification is diversifying your risk. So in other words, he will go to Charlie's Free Range Chooks and buy that. Now that business has little to do with Willie's Wheat Farm, Benny's Bakery, or Paul's Patisserie. You could argue that they use a fair few eggs in maybe the making bread or making pastries, and he could somewhat sell them on Silvio's supermarket. But in reality, it is a business that has very little link to this. Now, the reason why, say our gluten-free friends finally win something and say that no one's allowed to eat bread for the rest of their lives, Ben Broadley still has a business being Charlie Free Range, being Charlie Weston's business that he's bought, which is the Free Range Chooks. It's argued to say if we're not going to be eating bread, we'll still be eating chickens and most likely eggs. Therefore, they have diversified their business, widened their product range, and widened their total available market. Now, you can continue to diversify at this point, and he goes into Matty's Mowing. This is our friend, let's call it Matt Gamble, who comes last in every Kahoot. Now, Matty started a mowing business. He decides to sell it to Ben Broadley. Now, Mr. Broadley is the owner of quite an empire here. He's got Charlie Weston's Chook Range. He's got Will's Wheat Farm. He's got his mate Silvio's Supermarket and Matty's Mowing. Now, whatever economic trends or issues or growth and acquisition issues that are going through the business, he has a wide market share and a wide total available market and sells a vast array of products. So it means that his business is quite secure. If you haven't worked it out already, this looks very much like our friends Coles with their Bunnings down here and their owning of farmers up here in adjacent markets and their expansion into the ownership of all the shelf space and the products that go on them. Now, let's move to maturity. I hope you've got that last point in your notes. Now, maturity is your sales can still be increasing, but it's starting to slow down. Often there's the imminent danger that your business might be going to fall off the cliff because social trends are changing. And at this point, you go through a lot of businesses hear about restructure. You might hear this in the news or see something where a business goes through a little bit of a restructure. If you listen to the radio on the way to work or the way to school, you could say that in regards to the radio stations. Kiss FM getting a bit old in sales, so they rebranded themselves and then hired in Kyle and Jackie O. That is a bit of their jumpstart to I guess, put off their imminent danger of possible decline. Now, if you choose not to do that and rebrand your business, you can have what's called complacency, where your management staff can continue to say, let's just do things the way we've always done and our business can continue in perpetuity. That didn't fare so well for Apple or BlackBerry for that nature, but that's something you're going to be working on a little bit. Now, we're back to our table, which for this one is table 4.3. Once again, I'd like you to copy this down into your notes. You have the features or the main challenges at the maturity stage and the strategies to overcome them. Now, at this point, you actually have a bit more finance. I can imagine in your notes from growth and establishment phase, a lot of your things are constricted by money, being that your business don't have enough money to pay for all of this. At maturity stage, businesses generally have access to finance thanks to financial deregulation in the external influences. And your business has been a while for around, so people trust and know your business and are more likely to be willing to back it if you're financially. But some of the other problems is the gloss of your company might have come off a little bit because your products tend to become a little bit stagnant or stale, and they're a bit seen as old school. And I guess you could say that with social media. For example, Facebook used to be quite popular a while ago. Now, if I could arguably ask for a show of hands now, you get a more likely leaning towards Instagram. Snapchat already having had its day in the sunshine and then somewhat declined. Now, after the maturity stage, you go to what is post-maturity. If I bring them all up here, you have the first one of the three. If we go all the way back, remember we have our three, which was renewal, steady state, and decline. Let's look at steady state first, which remember was a steady line continuing on through post-maturity. Now, the steady state is you're neither expanding or decline, and you basically business can continue on in perpetuity, doing not much and maintaining its same level profit levels. The reason why is you don't want to spend any more money on research and design. If I can say that from research and design or research and development, it'd be like Apple releasing the first ever iPhone and then never marketing a new one or creating a new one afterwards. Yes, they do replacement products or replacement elements for that, but essentially it is the same product over and over again, where we can argue that Apple has actually spent a lot of money on R&D and released new phones to grow their market share. But we can all think of maybe another business that has probably just stayed selling the exact same product and never changed. I can think of Reflex Paper as one. It's a solid example. Now, this state cannot be held forever, okay? You're eventually going to die off one day. All right. Think of the video recorder or the tape recorder. They believed and they were in a steady state for a very, very long time. But your Panasonic tape recorder do not exist anymore. Case in point, Mr. Hogan is using an electronic device and a computer to record his voice for you in this lesson. We then have decline, my favorite, where we can go into a little bit more depth. Now, customers stop buying products. It becomes difficult to borrow money because people see that you're about to die off as a business. Suppliers even start to restrict what they give you. For example, they might say, I'm not sending you electronic devices or the yarn to make your shirts. You need to give me cash up front. This significantly restricts your business ability to grow. Your product can become obsolete. Think about the example I just gave before where your Panasonic tape recorder. You're eventually going to become obsolete. Products will be released that outdo the product that you've got on. At this point, you also have an issue with being employee flight. I'll ask you in the class, why would you think an employee would want to run if they start seeing that the business can't borrow money, suppliers are restricting supplies, and your product is becoming somewhat obsolete, being that it's no longer used? Now, eventually, if you don't do anything to address this or reverse the decline, you will die out. Think of our good friends BlackBerry here, and I invite you to click on this YouTube link and what's the YouTube link. It'll become very handy for you a little bit later. After you've watched this video, please come back and watch the rest of this video. Our last one is our good friend Renewal. This is where a business tries to kind of reinvent itself, I guess. They realize that they need to increase sales, go out there and conduct market research and understand what's the issue with their products. You may need to do an issue share or raise capital. Think of our friends Kathmandu and what you did in class. And you might need to do things where you're changing or removing products that are no longer profitable. Think what Steve Jobs when he returned to Apple. All right, Apple had over 30 products. He returned them just to 4. Okay, that's a clear example. Now, I'd ask you to brainstorm now for renewal a couple of ways a business could achieve this. And think of a business in your mind that has achieved renewal. Okay, it's important that we have case studies for the upcoming examination. So I'd invite you to brainstorm that. The post-maturity being the final thing for your notes is the table. It's on page 101 or 102 if you're using the new book. Can you please complete this table and put it into your notes? Okay? They're the factors we just discussed. Now, factors that can contribute to a business decline. There is a lot of them, but we're going to look through them through case studies. I'd like you to copy out figure 4.7, which as I look here is on page 1. I'm still looking. It's still figure 4.7. It's on page 103 in the new books and 104 in the old books. For those of you using a laptop, it'd be quite easy just to copy and paste. For those of you using notes, can you please copy these in? Now, they're all pretty self-explanatory factors. However, there are 2 overriding factors that contribute to business decline, and it's no different. It's the same in Australia. There's the lack of management expertise. In other words, you might have a great product, a great idea, or can make great ice cream or mow the lawns really well. However, your lack of management expertise in running a business ultimately leads to your decline. The second and most common one is your lack of sufficient money. In other words, your cash flow is poor. You never get enough money in the door to pay your expenses or pay them on time, and you eventually become insolvent. And then the other one is undercapitalization, which isn't so much cash flow, but in other words, you start the business with not enough money in the bank or not enough access to finance so that as your business grows, you can utilize more capital and buy more materials or buy more machinery so you can increase your growth. Think of a car manufacturer that can only ever make 10 cars a week. Unless you go get out capital so that you can increase your factory and start making 100 cars a week, you're still never really going to grow as a car business. Now, gentlemen, this is where you're going to learn it in depth through the case study. Our good friends Kathmandu come back. Kathmandu is dropping shares 12% after a week Christmas sales. And there is the example or a case study that I'd like you to read, page 101 and 102 in the new textbook, where you list 3 reasons why the Kathmandu business declined. I'd like you to read their case study in depth. This is important for you to know, gentlemen. Alternatively, if you don't want to do Kathmandu and you want to use a different business, I'd invite you to do it for BlackBerry. There's a very good podcast on here where you can listen to, or you can read it just directly, and then you also have a short YouTube clip that you can watch on BlackBerry. Here is a beautiful summary of BlackBerry. Right about here is the height of the BlackBerry use. It's a period of time when Mr. Hogan had to have a bunch of BlackBerries on standby when he was in corporate banking before they started to wane their profits and people started to move to the more alternative smartphones. They tried to bring back it with the tablet, but sadly, they're now basically out the back door and looking to sell their software for as low as $400 million, having originally been a business priced well over $1 billion a short while ago. I'll leave it there if you do, and then I'll have my last video as the final video to finish it off.